All right, what's up, guys? So we're about to continue reacting to the Piers Morgan interview. Now we're about to react to Milo Yiannopoulos.
Or visit oxfordnatural.com/Piers. And here's the best part. Use the code Piers and get 70% off your first order. Get 70% off with the code Piers. Imagine the scene, a veteran TV host causing outrage by interviewing a rising alt-right star who's facing accusations of racism, anti-Semitism, and much more besides. Yes, Bill Maher interviewed Milo Yiannopoulos almost 9 years ago. And some of those who despair at the mainstream rise of Nick Fuentes and his followers believe a lot of this all started back then. Well, Milo Yiannopoulos joins me now. Welcome to Uncensored.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I remember the Bill Maher thing. I remember the fallout from that. Now, when you
What's wrong with dude's eyes?
look at that, Milo, when you see what's happening with Nick Fuentes, do you feel that you were like at the start of all this, that you were partly responsible for all this? How do you feel about it?
I certainly feel as though it looks a little similar to when I was speaking at Berkeley and giving journalists conniptions. But I think there's something very distinctly different about me and somebody like Nick Fuentes. We've moved quite dramatically in America toward a sort of, I would call it something like an epistemological crisis. 10 years ago, we had positions. There were people with intellectual hinterlands who had opinions and who were consistent in their political beliefs. I don't think Nick Fuentes really believes in anything at all. And I think it's partly a result of the press spinning out of control to attack Donald Trump. There are all kinds of etiologies for it. But I think it's quite a different moment we're experiencing now. And I think he's quite a different phenomenon.
I mean, I interviewed him at length and put to him a number of more controversial things that he said. He doubled down on most of it. He unashamedly said he was racist. He explained why he was racist in a very racist manner. He was blatantly misogynist and unashamedly so. He kind of hedged round about Holocaust denial, but I suspect, as some people have said since, he was playing a sort of arch satirical game with me about that, so that he could say later he didn't really mean it. How much of what is going on with him is performative? How much of it, you know him, you used to hang out with him and Ye and others, how much of it is real? How much does he really believe?
Yeah, I think it's kind of weird how, like, Milo and Nick don't get along, even though, like, they were both with Ye for when he was trying to become president. I think back in, what was it? Was it 2020 or 2024? I really can't remember. They were both together helping Ye trying to become president. So, like, it's kind of weird how, like, they just fell out for some reason. Like, I don't know. That's really weird. I mean, like, Milo was calling Nick gay and stuff, and, like, that's really weird. I don't know. Like, this political world is really weird. This influencers, social media world is really weird. How people just turn on each other real quick just because they say, like, one little thing that they disagree with, and, like, they just completely, like, just make all these accusations. It's weird.
Well, I tried to befriend Nick because I wondered if there was anything to save there. And so I became, I suppose, something like a mentor to him for a couple of years. And it turned out that there really wasn't. He's a person who just wants to hurt people. And I don't
believe that.
I couldn't find, it was like nailing jelly to the wall. I couldn't find any consistent or substantive kind of core to him in any way. I mean, Nick is a kind of chameleonic character in media. On one day, he'll go on a podcast hosted by an African-American who has rappers on, and he'll say, oh, I love immigrants. I know illegal immigrants. No, they're not bad people. And then he'll come on with you where he feels he's on surer ground, and he'll sort of do the smirking, double down kind of mischievous routine. He's a very gifted speaker. He's obviously got very high verbal IQ. He's a very charismatic person. But having observed him and having known him for a little while and been on the receiving end of some of his worst behavior, he's something distinctively different, as I mentioned before, from the provocateurs of a decade ago and the decades before that.
I do believe he's different just based off how he was canceled when he was 18 years old, just based off his political views. I do believe that like he probably does still have like this, I don't know, like I guess you say armor up anytime like somebody says something bad about him. He knows where that leads to, like leads to him getting canceled, debanked, people being disloyal, betraying him. So I can understand why Nick probably is still in that, probably still in that type of mindset, really. So I do, he probably is like that, but honestly, I don't know him, so I don't really know. But I do understand where Milo's coming from that aspect of his argument.
He is, I think, emblematic of Gen Z, really, in being quite a pure and sort of terrifyingly pure nihilist. And really, I couldn't tell you an opinion, aside from hating Jews, that if he has on Tuesday, he will absolutely for sure still have on Thursday. And that can't be a good thing.
I mean, you mentioned that you're the son of a woman, your mother, who was born in Germany, who was Jewish. I suppose it begs the question, knowing how apparently anti-Semitic he is. I mean, he's constantly attacking Jews, constantly accusing Jews of running the world in a malevolent way and so on. Why would you want to hang around with someone like him? And indeed, Ye, for that matter, who then began spewing anti-Semitic content.
Well, Ye is in a completely different category. I mean, Ye is a generational, a genius. I mean, he can speak for himself. He doesn't need me to speak for him. These two people are in completely different categories. I think that maybe to British ears, some of the discourse in America can sound really just baffling and horrifying and hateful. And it's important to understand what's really going on. Whereas 10 years ago, we were sort of saying things to be mischievous and naughty, provocative, and to push the boundaries, that now has sort of evolved into a less ironic kind of I guess you call it an equal opportunities loathing for everybody in the forms of people like Nick Fuentes. But, I got to say, I don't have that much of a problem with a lot of what he says when he's talking about, I mean, when you were sort of incredulous about his misogyny, I felt it actually was a little unfair to him because, 10 years ago, we were talking about how men were getting left behind, how women were overtaking them at university, how, the world had suddenly, bafflingly, and very, very abruptly become quite a hostile place to be a man. That situation has not gotten better. And so I think his generation's hostility toward women is, lamentable, but very understandable. And, when he comes to talk about, what he would call Jewish power, there is a discussion to be had there that has not been had for a very long time because people have been, spooked or intimidated or threatened into silence because of an event 75, 80 years ago, which has been, weaponized against I think, legitimate debate about, for instance, what the state of Israel is up to. I think it's really good. I mean, and I got to tell you, I really give you a lot of credit for breaking with the establishment on Israel and coming up with the opinion that you have, which I think is the correct one. But it was very difficult up until about 5 years ago to speak plainly and honestly about some of the most appalling behavior of the Israeli state because you knew what was going to happen. You knew what you were going to get called. And I do think there's some value to having a character like Nick. I'm not a fan of Nick's, but I do at least see some positive benefit in, if you like, the wreckage he's left behind.
But the problem is that, his groypers, his fan club, all the abuse that's spewed my way since I did the interview was entirely predictable. But I've been really struck, not just by how blatantly misogynist and violent it is about women, and I don't really accept the defense that, men have been treated badly. I've been leading the charge for young men to be treated better, for the man bashing to stop and so on. It doesn't mean at the same time you have...
No, you have not been leading the charge. Like, bro, you criticize everybody that's really trying to help men nowadays, like Myron Gaines, Andrew Tate, Sneeko, Nick Fuentes, who else? I don't know who else he's had on, but he criticizes like the people that are like at the head of trying to really improve men's lives. He criticizes them, but he's trying to say he's actually trying to help men. No, he doesn't, bro. No, you don't, bro. Maybe from a liberal standpoint, I guess you think you are, but from a conservative way, you're not. and men are tired of living that liberal way and that liberal mindset. They want to go more red pill conservative. So
just belittle and demean women, or say they shouldn't be allowed to vote, or shouldn't be allowed a job, or they're going to get old and fat and ugly and they're all annoying. I mean, that's not about defending the male position. It's about just demeaning and belittling and attacking women, which is to me grotesque. But I think in terms of it
does look ugly, but you have to understand it in the context of a very heavily feminized society. I mean, we have speech codes in the workplace. We have exams rewritten to favor girls. I mean, it's not just that women are pulling ahead in university. I mean, women really have engineered the world against men. And I'm not saying that I like the tone that some of these Zoomers take, but do I understand it? I sure do. I really do understand. A 22-year-old guy today has no realistic prospect of building a life for himself, and no path to being a patriarch, no path to being a husband and father that he can plausibly see. So they're dropping out, they're getting hostile, they're getting bitter. Do I get it? I'll be honest with you, I do. I do understand it.
And what about his racism? He just admitted, I'm a racist, and then explained why. He doesn't want to be walking around near black people and so on. I mean, he articulated perfectly what it is to be a racist, where you want to be away from people.
Don't you think everyone feels a little bit? Don't you think everyone feels just slightly like that? Maybe he's an extreme case in the wake of George Floyd, and perhaps their frustration is with the white liberals that made it happen, or whatever. But I mean, there is a phrase. I hope it's okay that I use a safer version of the word. There's a phrase in America at the moment, Negro fatigue. And it is used to describe people just being sick of hearing about, black people this, black people that, black people complaining, in the wake of George Floyd, which was just the most grotesque absurdity and offence to common sense and to decency.
Do you think it's acceptable and decent to use a phrase like the one you just used?
I don't think there's too much wrong with what I just said. I certainly don't wake up in the morning glad that the world is more full of hate. I'm a Catholic, so the most important thing to me is not.
So why would you use a phrase like the one you just used? If you don't want to fuel that kind of thing,
well, I don't think.
Why would you use a phrase that you?
He literally just said he was going to try to say it in a way that was like not super offensive, bro.
It's inflammatory.
Well, there are much worse versions of that. I was using a sanitized version out of respect for your program.
Yes.
I doubt the average black viewer watching this, or African American who hears about that, is going to see it that way.
I do.
I think they'd rather be called what I said than have somebody who than have white people kind of tied up in knots, not even sure whether they should call them African American or black, because these things are sort of used as a sort of ever-changing linguistic weaponry against one race in society. Look, I mean, you can get waylaid and go down on a tangent about that if you want. What I was trying to explain in an anthropological way, it was explain to you, how people are feeling in America, and it's not just 22-year-old far-right racists that feel like this. It's not.
Well, what I'm struggling to do, if I'm honest with you, Milo, I'm struggling to see where you are different to Fuentes, other than you speak in a posh English accent. I mean, you've basically agreed with everything he's been saying, while saying, I don't agree with it.
No, I mean, I think there's a big difference between somebody who is leaning into animosity and hatred of others, and somebody who is observing it happening, sympathetic about the origins, and lamenting the fact that it exists. I mean, I don't think the tone that I'm taking, irrespective of my accent, is anything like the way that Nick talks, and I think the comparison's slightly silly.
Well, because I think you can
just because I can understand, because I'm empathetic to this group of people, and because I think that now and again they have a point about things, doesn't make me Nick. It means that I can perhaps understand that group a little bit, sort of see where they're coming from.
That's called being high IQ and using some critical thinking skills.
Respects, and making friends with Nick was. My intention was if I can have one foot in that world and one foot in in the sane world of everybody else, maybe I could help bridge the gap there. It turned out not to be the case because he's let's say not a bridge builder, but
what is it specifically you don't agree with him?
Isn't it?
What is it you don't agree with him about? Christmas is peak time for online shopping.
I think he has a reductionist and grievance-fueled view of the world that explains almost everything that's wrong with America, geopolitics, the economic state of his generation, and the fact that he can't get a good burger. It all seems to be the Jew fault. And there are some things that, now and again that do strike one as unusual, whether it's Jewish overrepresentation in certain industries. There are certainly criticisms to be had of Israel, but Nick reducing the whole world down to a vast Jewish conspiracy, and it would all just be fine if we could smash Jewish power. I don't have anything remotely like that kind of point of view.
Well, how could you? Your mother's Jewish.
I think it's strange that you're. Jewish. Yeah. I think it's strange.
He's about to attack Piers.
I'm confused as to why you seem so anxious to suggest that we're identical. It's quite.
No, I didn't say that. I'm just as you were defending him over the misogyny, defending him over the anti-Semitism, defending him over the racism. I just began to conclude that although you're saying it in a different way, and obviously I was being ironic, I myself speak in a English accent. But it seemed to me that you were going out of your way to defend things which I thought were pretty deplorable in that interview.
Well, I'm trying to understand where these guys are coming from, because there's a lot of them. There's a whole generation of them. And if we simply write them off as racist, sexist, misogynist pigs, we'll lose them. And we'll lose them to people like Nick Fuentes. And I take the view that it would be better to understand what of their package of opinions has validity and what does not. Understand where some of their anxieties and concerns are coming from, figure out what we can fix, and try to rescue a generation that seems to me to be sliding into nihilism and hatred of everybody. Isn't that a good thing?
Yes.
Well, I mean, look, if we expand it, if you look at someone like Ye, you represent him, I think, right? You work with him still.
About to try to attack him again. No,
yes, I manage the lawyers, and I run this family office. Yeah.
And again, I would simply say that this is a guy who, on the record, I would have asked him this if he hadn't walked out of our last interview to get him to explain why he said these things. But only 3 years ago, literally 3 years ago this month, he praised Hitler, denied the Holocaust. I love Jewish people, but I also love Nazis. I do love Hitler. He posted an image of a swastika fused within a Star of David, which led to a second suspension from X for incitement to violence, and so on. Right? He then produced a song called Heil Hitler, which was banned from many platforms, and so on. This is deliberate baiting of Jewish people in the most horrific manner possible. Again, I just ask you, are you comfortable working for him with that?
Well, of course I'm comfortable. I mean, he's an extraordinary human being. I mean, there's a perfectly good explanation for that, which he has given a number of times. You can find it plausible or implausible, as the case may be. But the way he explained it, and he did this on a live stream, and it's readily available, he said, I want to perform Heil Hitler at the Grammys, because if I do that, those words will suddenly no longer have power. I will have conquered them. I will have drained them of all of their, I forget the expression he used, but I suppose I would say something, all of their, their toxic, hateful, taboo energy, whatever. The way he was articulating his artistic project in doing that, and some people will find it persuasive and some won't, was that was in terms of, abuse survivors. We used to laugh at them 10 years ago when they had trigger warnings and safe spaces and, little puppy rooms and stuff like that, because everybody...
He's really trying to defend Kanye on making a song about the mustache man. Bro, that's crazy, bro. I mean... Yeah, it is his boss and it's his friend, so yeah, he does have to defend him. But that's still crazy that he made that song. Well, I think he made two different songs like that, bro. That's crazy, bro. It really is. I mean, I understand it. Like, he got blackballed. They took his bank accounts away and ruined his Adidas. stuff. They try to put him in rehab. I'm like, man, like that's trash. And taking his kids away and stuff. Like, I get it, it's trash, but like, bro, like, you gotta be something else to try to make songs like that. That's crazy.
That if you get raped or something terrible happens to you, the best way to put your life back together is exposure therapy, so that it doesn't become this sort of thing that that turns you into a blubbering mess every time you hear about it for the rest of your life. You just slowly kind of acclimatize back and get used to it. Ye seemed to be taking a similar view about some words, phrases, and opinions that have had a stranglehold on our culture for a long time. And it's funny, he perhaps hasn't read, the Holocaust in American Life by Peter Novick, the Princeton academic, who explains how that particular historical event was sort of rebooted in the academy in the 1960s and formed the basis of modern, what we would call grievance culture and victimhood ideology that became BLM. But Ye sort of seemed to instinctively intuit that this was being weaponized and leveraged to stop people talking about other things, like Israel, for instance, or other things like the fact that one particular group of people seemed to be all the managers in the entertainment industry, and they were systematically defrauding and screwing the black entertainers that they were managing. I mean, he's entitled to that view. He's entitled to that observation. And if it's right that his intention was to take this horrifying taboo, the greatest evil in history, as we're all told to call it.
What would you call it?
If it was his intention.
Well, what would you call it?
Well, of course it was a monstrous and incomprehensible evil. Maybe Stalin was worse. Who cares? Like after a certain point, it's like it's just evil. We can't wrap our heads around, isn't it? If the way he was articulating at the time he gave that interview, and within a day of giving that interview, he was on a live stream and he said, "I want to sing Heil Hitler at the Grammys because after that the words will no longer have any power." That's a bit more of a complex, subtle, artistic project than you're giving him credit
Milo,
for.
Honestly, it's just a crock of shit. That's not why he did it, just for attention. He didn't care about antagonizing and upsetting and distressing Jewish people worldwide. He's a massive entertainer with 33 million followers.
No, he did care about them. That's why he made the song. I don't think he really, honestly, he really didn't do it for attention. He did it because it was angry. Like, Ye doesn't need to get attention. He just has it already. Like, he doesn't need to do anything bombastic to like regain attention because he doesn't have any type of clout or status. He already has it. Like, he made it because he was angry.
On X alone, as he reminded me when he did his little performative stunt with me. And the truth is that, all I've heard you do in the last 20 minutes is defend all these people from what I think are indefensible things they've said. And you've done it in a very sort of moderate sounding way. But I just think, I'd say this to Ye's face if he hadn't bottled it and run away. And I wouldn't have bought into it. He was doing all this stuff for some profound, complex reasons. No, he wasn't. He was just Jew baiting. He was Jew baiting and using Hitler to do it.
As I said at the beginning, some people are not going to find it plausible. I do think it's a pity that you two, in your encounters with one another, seem to have spoken past each other so much. You obviously haven't.
Last time I was prepared to do a lengthy interview. I did a 2-hour interview with him several years ago, which I thought was very illuminating, very enlightening. Mm-hmm. I was looking forward to doing the same thing with him the second time round, and he just bailed on me after 3 minutes because he obviously worked out it was going to be a publicity stunt.
Having had that conversation with him and having seen a little glimmer of what is clearly a remarkable intellect, albeit an unconventional one, you don't seem to give him very much credit as an artist, as a creative, as a provocateur.
No, just to be clear, he's one of the most talented. He's one of the most talented. No, hang on. He's one of the most talented artists of my generation, without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt.
It's possible, but it's also a little bit more.
It's also possible to say that some of the stuff he's come out with in the last 2 or 3 years has been disgusting. And I would have said that to him to his face. And by the way, the offer remains. If you want to go back to him and tell him we've had this exchange, I don't expect you to answer for him. If he wants to actually have the balls to sit there and answer these questions to me for a sustained period of time, I will do that interview. But he didn't want to. He'd rather turn it into a little...
Something of an answer... Sorry, go on.
No, go on. Make your point.
Perhaps something of an answer to your frustration is the fact that he did sit down with an Orthodox rabbi a couple of weeks ago, give a public and direct apology for having hurt people from that ethnic and faith group, and undertake to understand a bit better why it was that what he was seeking to accomplish with those garments and songs and whatever didn't land and upset and hurt a lot of people. I mean, he has begun to acknowledge that. I mean, perhaps your producers didn't tell you that, but that's for him to talk about.
Well, tell him the offer stands.
He has already acknowledged that, and he has already begun to.
Last time he bailed on me after 3 minutes. If he wants to have a longer conversation, I'd be very happy to do it. I've got to leave it there. Milo Yiannopoulos, thank you for coming on Uncensored.
Cool. All right, we're gonna finish the rest of it. It'll be on episode. What was it? This will be episode 5. The next will be episode 6, and we'll react to Steven Crowder. So, all right. Thank you guys for watching. Watch the next one. Thank you.